High in the towering Andes, a column of patriots struggles forward. Icy winds whip at their thin uniforms as Simón Bolívar leads them through clouds and over cliffs. In July 1819, Bolívar's army crossed the frozen passes of the Andes, a feat so daring and arduous that many said it was impossible. Men and horses stumble over icy trails. Countless perish in the thin air. Yet Bolívar urges them on, eyes fixed on the horizon. He has promised freedom, and he will stop at nothing to seize it. Long before that legendary march, Simón Bolívar was a young Venezuelan aristocrat with a revolutionary spark. Orphaned as a child, he inherited a love of Enlightenment ideals from his tutor, Simón Rodriguez, who introduced him to the works of Locke, Rousseau, and Voltaire. In 1805, on a mountaintop in Rome, Bolívar swore an oath never to rest until South America was freed from Spanish rule. This vision of independence became his life's mission. He dreamed of a united, liberated Latin America, no longer under any king's yoke. Bolívar's path was anything but easy. He first joined Venezuela's fight for independence in 1810, but early republics fell to Spanish reprisals and civil war. Earthquakes and royalist counterattacks shattered the First and Second Venezuelan republics by 1814, forcing Bolívar to flee into exile. In 1815, in Jamaica, he penned the famous Letter from Jamaica, laying out his bold vision for a free Spanish America and pleading for support. He found refuge and allies in Haiti, where President Alexandre Pétion aided him on one condition, that Bolívar abolish slavery in the liberated lands. Reinvigorated and true to his ideals, Bolívar returned to war in 1816, carrying both a promise of liberty and equality and an unbreakable resolve. By 1819, the war for independence had ground to a stalemate. Venezuela was devastated by years of conflict, and Spanish forces seemed unassailable. Bolívar, however, hatched a daring strategy. Instead of attacking head-on, he would lead his army on a grueling march across the Andes into New Granada, modern Colombia, catching the Spanish by surprise. It was a gamble of legendary proportions. The Andes were as deadly an enemy as any army. If nature opposes us, we'll fight against it and make it obey, Bolívar allegedly declared as his 2,400 men waded through flooded tropical plains and then ascended the freezing heights. On August 7, 1819, Bolívar's ragged army met the Spanish royalists at the Battle of Boyacá. The enemy, led by Colonel Barrero, never expected an attack from across the mountains. Bolívar and his trusted lieutenant Francisco de Paula Santander struck with fierce speed. At a narrow bridge by the Boyacá River, Patriot forces ambushed and routed the Spanish column. The battle was over in 2 hours. A stunning victory. Boyacá was the turning point. 5 days later, Bolívar marched triumphantly into Bogotá as the Spanish viceroy fled in such haste he left behind the treasury. The liberation of New Granada was complete. This victory gave Bolívar access to fresh troops, arms, and funds, precisely what he needed to free Venezuela next. Bolívar wasted no time. By 1820 to 1821, after a brief truce, he rallied patriot forces for the decisive blow in Venezuela. On June 24, 1821, he faced the royalist army under Spanish General Miguel de la Torre on the plains of Carabobo. The battle that ensued was the climax of Venezuela's war. By the end of the day, the Spanish resistance in Venezuela had been broken and victory was complete. The Battle of Carabobo secured Venezuela's independence once and for all, paving the way for Bolívar's dream of a new republic. In the wake of Carabobo, Bolívar rode into Caracas in triumph. The people hailed him as El Libertador, the Liberator, a title he had first earned years before and one he would carry forever. Venezuela was free, and Bolívar's vision of uniting the northern nations began to take shape. By late 1821, he oversaw the creation of Gran Colombia. This federation united Venezuela, New Granada, present-day Colombia, Panama, and later Ecuador into a single nation, with Bolívar as its president. With Venezuela and Colombia secure, Bolívar turned south to liberate Ecuador and Peru. His gifted general Antonio José de Sucre had already won a key victory at the Battle of Pichincha, freeing Quito, Ecuador, from Spanish grip. In July 1822, Bolívar met the Argentine liberator José de San Martín in the port of Guayaquil. In a famous but private interview, San Martin ceded the task of liberating Peru to Bolívar, leaving the mantle of freedom squarely on Bolívar's shoulders. Arriving in Peru in 1823, Bolívar found the war there raging. He took supreme command of the Patriot forces and rallied them for one last series of epic battles. On August 6, 1824, he led a cavalry charge to victory at Junín, clearing the way into the Peruvian highlands. In the newly liberated territory of Upper Peru, the grateful people decided to name their country after the great liberator himself. On August 6, 1825, they declared the creation of Bolivia, a nation born in freedom and christened in honor of Bolívar. Bolívar was chosen as its first president and asked to help draft the Constitution. After 16 years of relentless campaigning, Bolívar had liberated Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Panama, and Bolivia from Spanish rule. Few conquerors have fought for such idealistic ends. Yet even in triumph, Bolívar's struggles were not over. He dreamed of these newly freed lands united in a single federation, but political rivalries and regional ambitions tore at the unity of Gran Colombia. He survived an assassination attempt in 1828, saved by his close companion Manuela Sáenz, but the betrayal by former allies wounded him deeply. By 1830, bitterly disappointed and in ill health, Bolívar resigned the presidency. That same year, at the age of 47, the liberator died a weary man, convinced that his life's work had been in vain. He remains the heroic symbol of Latin American independence, El Libertador, who shattered the chains of an empire. The nations he freed remember him with countless statues, city names, and the enduring ideals of freedom and unity. His life was a saga of courage and conviction, marked by triumphs against seemingly impossible odds. In a cinematic sweep of history, crossing frozen mountains, charging on battlefields, and igniting the spirit of liberation, Bolívar forged a new world. His dream of liberty, though tempered by human frailty, continues to inspire, reminding us that a determined individual with a grand vision truly can change the fate of nations.